Beyond limits. Expanding minds. Opening hearts. Connecting into oneness. Talking about one of the more significant areas that's impacting everywhere in the world, artificial intelligence. And specifically, what's now beginning to brew up is this idea that it can help in terms of personal learning, in terms of therapy, quote, therapy, mental health. And so I thought it'd be good to talk about this because there are now apps based on AI to help people. And I know that, for example, two of the apps, 24 hours a day, and it uses cognitive behavioral therapy. So it uses that as the background for the techniques, and it produces mindfulness exercises. Essentially, it's acting as a therapist. So I guess the question I have is, how do you see AI beginning to impact personal development? I mean, you've been in the ministry for years, and also that is personal development to a large extent. How do you see this idea of these apps, including mindfulness apps and calming apps and all? How do you see it entering into your community?
I know a lot of my people right now are using Insight Timer. That's one
Mm-hmm.
of the apps out there where they have all sorts of meditations. In fact, I'm a contributor to that. The
Mm-hmm.
other thing that I'm finding is that, let's say, for example, I was doing a hypnotherapy script for a friend of mine that's in hospice suffering from Parkinson's disease. What can I use as suggestions to bombard suggestions therapy? So I'm bombarding with suggestions into the subconscious mind. So I went
Mm-hmm.
into AI, GPT, and I asked the question, okay, here's the conditions. What affirmations can I use to input in? And I said, give me 20. And
Yeah.
bam, in seconds, it popped it out.
Yeah.
And so I took them and I incorporated them into the hypnotic session that I did last Saturday. And the impact was profound. Now, pretty soon, it's going to be artificial intelligence. You'll go to artificial intelligence and say, hey, I want you to hypnotize me, get me into that deep, relaxing state. And here's what I want you to do.
Yeah.
The potential here is unbelievable, Larry.
It is. And then we're at this baby stage of that in terms of psychology and psychiatry and personal learning. I mean, you can put in things like how I want to be coached and watch it develop a plan for you and modify the plan depending upon how you've reacted to it. And because so much is phone based, it really is, it goes anywhere with you. Like on my site, the Mystic Living Center site, I have a section where you can go in there and you can just hit the button and it gives you a meditation or meditation on this or on that. And it's more popular than any of the rest of the things that are on the site. I don't have the AI driven versions of it, but I can see that coming because you can partner with a lot of these companies and they'll modify it for you so you can drop it into your website.
It's fascinating that, for example, from a mental health standpoint, how it can help you is it can reduce your workload. And if you
Yeah.
reduce your workload, you got more time to relax. So I simply went the other day into Chat GPT and I said, I'm leaving on vacation for 14 days and I normally put out a thought a day. So I don't want to have to do that while I'm on vacation.
Sure.
So I went to Chat GPT and I said, write me 14 thoughts for the day, 2 sentences each, with title that's captivating, and pull it from Reverend Lee Wallach's book called The Power in You.
Mm-hmm.
I hit the button, in less than 5 seconds, out pops these 14 thoughts from my book. Like I'm plagiarizing off anyone else's information. It actually went against my own book.
I remember when friends of mine who are psychologists were no longer using offices because they were doing the work from home and they were doing it from Zoom, or they were part of an app system where they're getting referrals. Well, we're past that now. Now it's moving into, or not necessarily past it, but we're moving into the augment of that by using, and it can learn all the various idiosyncrasies you have over time. and reprogram things accordingly. What we want to get into maybe next week is how AI impacts spirituality and how it impacts this idea of consciousness. Coming out of the computer and physics world, I have my own viewpoint on that. But I think in terms of things like this, Cognify is another one of the apps that's out there that helps people with their learning plans and so on. It's quite remarkable the good that it can do. Now, at some point, it's really going to start costing more and more. I looked up a few of these sites, and some of them are like $60 a month. Now, it may be fine if you're paying $50 a week for a therapist and you cut that cost down. On the other hand, is insurance covering that, or are you going to have to cover that? Interesting questions are coming up as a result of this.
How will individuals respond with the information? Will they actually begin to integrate it into their lives? There's still that factor involved of the human deciding that this is of value and that the human's got to take the action in order for it to manifest in their lives. No matter how
Right.
much information is there, there's got to be an application and a integration within.
And there's ethical considerations. What's happening with all this data? Because if it's an AI system, it's taking that data and using it not only for you, but it's most likely using it for anything and everything else.
Yes.
So where do we draw the line as to, this is something in terms of psychologists, so they have an ethics standard and they don't want people and their information getting out and the health requirements. When you get to the hospitals, what happens with all this information? Because AI has entered the hospitals already in big ways. It makes diagnosis so fast that, a doctor can sit at the computer and analyze 14,000 pages of data and come up with a diagnosis. So the ethical issue is a big one, I think, that's going to confront us soon. And of course, that pretends the idea that data collection and information is the biggest threat right now to the world.
We went from the Industrial Revolution to the Information Revolution. And what this is doing, this is furthering that information revolution by expand with speeds beyond anything that we can think of.
In the physics world, there are some of these calculations that would require server farms 10 or 20 years to come up with the results, and they're getting them in 10 or 20 seconds. And it's really remarkable how that works out and what it can do. But can it be conscious? Can it be sentient? How does that enter into the picture? That's the science fiction dystopian view that's been around since the 50s, or probably even the...
What was it? What was that in that Space Odyssey 2000? It was HAL, wasn't it? The other thing that really comes into play for me is if people start relying on AI, are they going to inhibit their own mental development, their ability to think, their ability to process, to look beneath, their ability to problem solve? Or are they going to become so reliant on the computer that that skill that we may have today disappears with the younger people?
Well, and it could be on the positive side. We don't have to remember tons of data because we could free our mind up from all of that stuff that's sitting in there, which of course in spirituality, one of the big things is freeing the ego mind so whatever is sitting in there is not thinking continuously. And that's a big inhibitor for many of us. And the more intellectual you are, it means really you have a bigger database of information you're drawing on. It puts everybody more on an equal footing, perhaps.
However, throw the caveat in. Is the information it's pulling from true or is it artificial? And how could that information be used by those programming it to manipulate public opinion, to manipulate individuals? So you've got that aspect that we really haven't even explored yet.
We do know that AI is being used by public relations firms, by ad agencies, by all of these people that are trying, not to mention the fact that when you go on to a news channel and you're surfing for pictures and you're surfing for stories, The next time you come on, that's what's going to show up. The same as the algorithms in Facebook, where if you spend time clicking on certain things, it shows up the next time you come into the system. So what's going to happen with not only, and I think one of the things you raise in terms of ethics is how valid is the information? How true is the information? And how is it being used? Because, as we've seen in our modern society, ethics is taking a back seat
Yeah.
to everything. We're moving more and more into the dystopian world of capitalism where anything goes as long as you can make money.
Yeah. And the word I think is confirmation bias really comes into play here. That if I put out, I'm looking at this, I'm looking at this, I'm looking at this, AI reads that, then all it feeds me already know, and I'm missing a whole spectrum of information.
And that's part of the danger of this kind of thing. And there's more dangers. As an author, I sit and write and I have pages and pages that I've written and I put it up on a system that checks the grammar. And the next thing I know, some of that shows up in AI. So here's a grammar checker feeding my information to an AI that's now going to populate that out to whoever's using that AI system. And that's the plagiarism issue that's happening right now.
I asked AI to go against my book.
Yeah.
I'm not receiving any royalties from AI doing that.
Nope.
That's a huge open issue that it's taking information that I created and taking it and using it for free.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a lot here that's got to be explored.
It has unintended consequences, as we say, and we're beginning to see some of it showing up in terms of just like this plagiarism. And people I see on Facebook and in other media, I see these people advertising, hey, write your book in 20 minutes using our AI system. And all it's doing is compiling all that stuff from all the databases that it has. I can go in and tell it I want a fiction story. I want it about this type of a person. I want these kinds of conflicts. And I want this plot outline. And it'll do all the work in 10 or 20 seconds. It doesn't take long. I can find stuff. Most likely, I can find stuff in there that's going to be, I'll call it pirated from all these other areas. So it's going to create, we're going to have a human rights commission on all of this that's going on. Pluses and it has its minuses. But the thing is, we don't want to be one way or the other. We want to be open to what is it helping us do in terms of mental health, in terms of hospital diagnosis, in terms of our spiritual progress or our personal learning. I mean, I saw an ad, I think it was yesterday, where this little girl, probably like 6 years old, runs into like a computer store, like an Apple store, and she grabs one of the display tablets and she starts doing her homework. And then the person comes over and goes, doesn't say anything, there's just music, and puts it back. And she starts putting all of her homework back. And a man comes over and gives her a chair and gives her back the tablet. She's doing her homework. And here a 5-year-old is doing her homework on a tablet. And soon, probably at 7 years old, she'll be using AI to figure out her study habits so that she can learn better. And I mean, most of education today, which is another whole topic beyond where we are, but education today is rote learning.
Yes.
Talk about bias confirmation. We're having to unlearn so much of what we've learned. And that's an issue. I think it's a huge issue. In fact, a friend of mine started something called Unlearning University. And I really like that.
There are students that are recording lectures in universities, then putting those lectures into AI and say, giving me the summary of these notes. And now go against the professor's prior exams and tell me what I need to know to pass this class.
I wish.
Wow.
I can't even imagine. So it's going to require that educational institutions are going to have to update themselves in major ways. And who knows where that leads to, but I think it's issuing in. I tell people, we're moving into the age of Aquarius. We're coming out of Pisces. And anytime we move from one to another, you have chaos. And I think we're in the midst of that chaos. If I can see what's going on around the world right now and what's happening, chaos. Now, it means that at some point that's going to settle down and there's going to be the calm and there's going to be, who knows what the next phase is for humanity. But Aquarius says it's all about humanity and human being and being human and doing things that are the right things to do.
And the thing too, Larry, is this is happening fast.
Yes.
This is happening really, really fast. And you got to wonder, is the human brain capable of progressing this fast, or has technology gone faster than the human can keep up with at this time?
Yeah, I think we're only about probably 5 years away from realizing that technology has gotten way beyond our ability to understand how to deal with it, how to control it, how to properly utilize it. AI is just one. I mean, the quantum computers that are coming online now are just staggering in the capability. You talk about a chip that has transistors in it. They're about the size of your thumb, and they've got thousands and thousands and thousands of transistors, and millions and trillions in some case of these little transistors. When you talk about a quantum computer, you're talking about information stored in the field of an electron or a proton. That's unlimited. There's no limitations on that. Whatever that position is, that superposition is of that particular particle or something is going to give you information. That means staggering amounts of information will be handled in small, teeny little infinite milliseconds, if not even faster than that. So what's that going to do to the world?
Well, think about it too, Larry. Our mind, we've not even tapped the storage capacity of our mind. It can hold thousands and thousands of times the information in a computer, and we're not accessing a minute percentage of it.
Yeah, that does remind me, though, that we say we only use 10% of our brain. The actuality is that's an old statement. That's not even actually true. They're beginning to see through all of the various measurement apparatus that they have today that the brain lights up in all kinds of different ways. The blood flow moves according to where we're thinking, and that we're using a lot more of the brain than people think. But we have our own confirmation bias, to use that phrase again, which is shaping what we learn, how we learn. And as any attorney can tell you, a witness, as good as they are, give their opinion. It's an opinion. The car wasn't blue, it was white. It wasn't a Mercedes, it was a Fiat. The person wasn't wearing a green suit, they were wearing, and on and on and on. And you find out they're not reliable.
And,
So
and it goes back to the whole idea of a computer. It only gives you a result based on the information put in. So if you
correct.
have confirmation bias and you keep putting in the same information, doesn't matter which way you ask that question, you're going to get the same answer. And
We see
so
that in
that's something
politics.
I see in my own life when I'm looking at things. I have to ask, wait a second, you've got a bias over here. You need to put some information over here. Otherwise, you're just going to be getting the same result over and over and over again.
Yeah. And my personal spiritual learning process is letting go of the mind and how the ego mind operates, and challenging the thoughts that are coming up, no matter what they are,
Yep.
so that I move into that other space where everything is already known. And then I don't have to store bo diddly in my brain. So, and I think that's going to be a good conversation for next week, but I think we'll wrap it up on my AIs telling me we should be done.
I
So we'll
love it.
see you next week.
Beyond Limits. Expanding minds. Opening hearts. Connecting into oneness.